I sat at my own dining table during Sunday dinner, the roast I'd spent 3 hours preparing growing cold on my plate. My son Trevor and his wife Stephanie sat across from me with their 2 children. As I reached for seconds, Trevor's voice cut through the room like a knife. "You know, Mom, you eat but you don't help anymore. You just take up space in this house." Stephanie smirked. The grandchildren looked at their plates. My fork stopped midair. My heart shattered into 1,000 pieces right there at that table. I set down my fork without saying a word. The silence that followed felt heavier than anything I'd ever carried. I stood up slowly, my legs shaking, and walked to my bedroom. Behind me, I heard them continue eating. Someone laughed. The sound of silverware scraping plates filled the hallway as I closed my door. I sat on the edge of my bed, the same bed I'd shared with my husband Robert for 23 years before he died. The same bed where I'd cried myself to sleep after his funeral. The same bed where I'd planned how to keep this house, how to raise Trevor alone, how to survive on 2 jobs, and pure determination. Tears streamed down my face, but I didn't make a sound. I couldn't let them hear me cry. Through my door, I heard Trevor and Stephanie laughing in the kitchen as they did the dishes. The dishes I'd cooked with. The meal I'd prepared. In the house I'd fought to keep. Trevor was 38 years old now. I'd raised him in this house after Robert died of a heart attack when Trevor was only 8. I'd worked as a nurse during the day and cleaned offices at night to keep up with the mortgage payments. I'd put him through college, watched him graduate, walked him down the aisle at his wedding, and this was how he spoke to me. But it wasn't just the words that hurt. It was the way he said them, like it was a fact, like I was a burden he'd been tolerating, like this house, my house, was somehow his to judge me in. I couldn't sleep that night. At 2 a.m, I got up to use the bathroom and noticed my bedroom door was slightly ajar. I always closed it completely, always. Through the crack, I saw a light on in the guest room across the hall. Trevor and Stephanie had been staying overnight more frequently lately, sometimes 2 or 3 nights a week. They'd been living with me for 8 months now, ever since they said their apartment lease ended and they needed time to find a new place. I heard voices, low and quiet, but distinct. I shouldn't have listened. Part of me knew I shouldn't, but something made me tiptoe across the hallway and stand just outside their door. Trevor's voice came first. "Once we get the house officially transferred, we can renovate the whole place. It's worth at least $4 million in this neighborhood." My blood went cold. Stephanie responded, "Your mom's lawyer called me back yesterday. He said the power of attorney documents are almost ready. Once she signs them next Tuesday, we'll have full control of everything." "She's so out of it lately, she won't even remember signing," Trevor said. I could hear him moving around the room. Dr. Palmer already wrote the letter about her declining mental capacity. "It's all coming together. Then we can move her into that memory care facility," Stephanie added. "Sunrise Village has an opening in December. It's only $3,000 a month with the Medicaid waiver." Trevor laughed, actually laughed. Cheap price to finally have our own place. And with her retirement and Social Security, we won't even have to pay for the home out of our pocket. That's another $2,000 a month we can use however we want. I stood frozen in the hallway, my hand covering my mouth to keep from gasping. They were planning to steal my house. They were planning to lock me away in a facility. They'd convinced my doctor to lie about my mental health. They'd found a lawyer to create fake documents. And they'd been planning this for months, maybe longer. I retreated to my room as silently as I'd come. I sat in the darkness for hours, my mind racing. I wasn't confused. I wasn't declining. I was 65 years old, yes, but I was healthy, sharp. I managed my own finances, cooked, cleaned, drove, read 3 books a month. There was nothing wrong with my mind, but they were going to tell the world there was. By the time the sun rose Monday morning, I'd made my decision. I would not be a victim. I would not let them steal everything I'd worked for. And I certainly would not let them lock me away like some inconvenient problem to be solved. I was going to fight back. Monday morning arrived with crisp autumn sunshine. I made breakfast like always, scrambled eggs and toast, coffee brewing in the pot. Trevor and Stephanie came downstairs dressed for work. I smiled at them. I asked about their plans for the day. I acted like nothing had changed. The moment their cars pulled out of the driveway, I grabbed my phone. Martin Fletcher had been my lawyer for 25 years. He'd handled Robert's estate after he died, helped me with the mortgage refinancing, drawn up my will. He was 70 years old now, semi-retired, but he answered on the second ring. "Martin, I need to see you immediately," I said. "Something terrible is happening." An hour later, I sat in his office and told him everything, the conversation I'd overheard. The supposed lawyer named Gary Pemberton. The fake power of attorney documents. Dr. Palmer's fraudulent letter. Martin's face grew darker with every word. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and shook his head. "Doreen, I never spoke to any Stephanie. No one from my office contacted her. Someone is impersonating your legal representation." He picked up his phone and started making calls. Within 2 hours, he'd uncovered the truth. Gary Pemberton was a real lawyer, but one with a questionable reputation. Martin knew colleagues who'd dealt with him before. He specialized in elder exploitation cases, helping family members gain control of their aging relatives' assets through questionable means. He'd been investigated twice by the state bar, but never formally charged. "This is elder abuse," Martin said flatly. "Financial exploitation with intent to defraud. If they'd succeeded, Trevor would be looking at felony charges." "They haven't succeeded yet," I said, "and they're not going to." Martin made more calls. He scheduled an emergency appointment for me that same afternoon with Dr. Sharon Wright, a geriatric specialist at Memorial Hospital. I'd never met her before, which was exactly the point. She had no connection to Trevor, no reason to lie. Dr. Wright was a woman in her early 50s with kind eyes and a thorough manner. She spent 2 hours with me. Memory tests, cognitive assessments, physical examination, questions about my daily life. She had me count backward from 100 by sevens. She asked me to recall lists of words. She tested my problem-solving skills, my reasoning, my ability to follow complex instructions. At the end, she sat across from me and smiled. "Mrs. Thompson, there is absolutely nothing wrong with your cognitive function. Your memory is excellent. Your reasoning is sound. You show no signs whatsoever of dementia, Alzheimer's, or any form of mental decline. In fact, your test scores are above average for your age group." She provided me with a notarized report documenting everything. Martin made copies immediately. Then we moved on to the next step. I called Paula Jennings, a real estate agent I'd met at a church fundraiser the previous year. She arrived at my house at 4 o'clock, while Trevor and Stephanie were still at work. Paula walked through the house with a practiced eye. Original hardwood floors. Large lot, almost half an acre. Prime neighborhood where property values had exploded. The house had good bones, even if it needed updating. "Doreen, in this market, I'd estimate $4 million, maybe 4.2, she said. "These older homes on large lots are incredibly desirable. Developers love them. But so do families who want space." "How fast can you sell it?" I asked. She looked surprised. "With the right buyer, maybe 3 weeks. If we find someone paying cash who wants a quick close." maybe sooner. List it today, I said. I want it sold as fast as possible, cash buyers preferred. Paula's eyes widened, but she nodded. By 6 o'clock that evening, my house was listed on the multiple listing service. Professional photos would be taken the next day. First showings were scheduled for the weekend. Tuesday morning came. Trevor and Stephanie had both taken the day off work. I knew why. This was the day I was supposed to sign their fake documents. At 10 o'clock, a silver sedan pulled into the driveway. A man in his 50s stepped out, carrying a leather briefcase, Gary Pemberton. I recognized him from the photo Martin had shown me. Trevor let him in. They all sat down at my kitchen table. Stephanie poured coffee. Everyone was smiling. The briefcase opened, and a stack of papers emerged. "Mrs. Thompson," Gary Pemberton said in an oily voice, "these are just some routine documents to help Trevor and Stephanie assist you with managing your affairs. Just sign here, here, and here." I picked up the pen. I held it over the first signature line. Then I set it down and looked Gary Pemberton directly in his eyes. "I'm not signing anything," I said calmly. "And I know exactly what you're trying to do." The room went silent. Trevor's face turned white, then red. Stephanie's coffee cup froze halfway to her mouth. "Mom," Trevor started, his voice tight. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about your plan to steal my house," I said. "I'm talking about the fake mental capacity letter from Dr. Palmer. I'm talking about your scheme to have me declared incompetent so you can take everything I own." Gary Pemberton stood up so fast his chair scraped loudly against the floor. "I think there's been a misunderstanding. I'll just leave these papers and you can review them with your family." "There's no misunderstanding," I said, "and you can take your fraudulent documents with you." He grabbed his briefcase and practically ran out the door. The moment he left, Stephanie started screaming. "You ungrateful old woman! We've been taking care of you. We gave up our lives to be here." I stood up. "Taking care of me? I cook every meal. I clean this house. I pay every bill. The only thing you've given up is paying rent." Trevor's face contorted with rage. "This house should be mine. Dad would have wanted me to have it." Something inside me snapped. "Your father worked himself to death to keep this house for me. Not for you, for me. He died at 45 years old, from stress and exhaustion, trying to provide for his family. Don't you dare use his memory to justify your greed." Trevor grabbed my arm. Hard. His fingers dug into my skin. "You're not going anywhere until we figure this out. You're going to sign those papers." I yanked my arm away. "Take your hands off me. I'm leaving." I walked to my bedroom, pulled out the suitcase I'd packed the night before, and headed for the door. Trevor followed, shouting. Stephanie blocked my path. "We'll have you committed," Stephanie screeched. "Dr. Palmer will testify. You're crazy." I looked at her with pity. "Try it. I have my own doctor's evaluation from yesterday, notarized and documented. I'm perfectly mentally sound, but you and Trevor are about to be investigated for elder abuse and fraud." I pushed past them, walked out my front door, got in my car, and drove away. In my rear-view mirror, I saw them standing on the porch, mouths open in shock. I didn't tell them where I was going. I didn't owe them that. I drove north for 3 hours, following the coastline until I reached Bayport, a small town I'd visited once years ago with Robert. It was quiet there, peaceful, the kind of place where nobody knew your business. I checked into an extended-stay hotel called the Seaside Inn. It wasn't fancy, but it was clean and comfortable, and it had a view of the ocean from the small balcony. I registered under my own name. I had nothing to hide. I'd done nothing wrong. My phone started ringing before I even finished unpacking. Trevor, I let it go to voicemail. It rang again and again. By the end of the first day, he'd called 47 times. I didn't answer any of them. Finally, I sent him a single text message. I'm safe. I need space. Do not contact me. He responded immediately. Mom, please come home. We need to talk. I'm sorry. I turned off my phone's ringer and tried to sleep. Back at the house, Trevor and Stephanie were panicking. Martin told me later what happened. They'd searched my bedroom and found the real estate listing agreement in my desk drawer. They discovered the house was already on the market. First showings were scheduled for that weekend, just 5 days away. Trevor lost his mind. He called everyone he could think of. He called my sister Janet in Florida. He called my brother Arnold in Texas. He called cousins, old friends, anyone who might know where I was or might convince me to come back. But I'd anticipated that. I'd already called Janet and Arnold myself, told them the truth before Trevor could spin his lies. On Thursday, Trevor made his move. He hired a more aggressive attorney, a man named Bernard Walsh, who advertised on late-night television. Together they filed an emergency petition with the county court claiming I was mentally incompetent and a danger to myself. They requested immediate guardianship. They submitted Dr. Deputem 9, Palmer's fraudulent assessment, as evidence. The court scheduled a hearing for the following week. Martin called me with the news. Doreen, you need to come back for this hearing. We'll fight it, but you have to be there. I'll be there, I said. Meanwhile, the house showings began. Paula called me Saturday evening. Doreen, we had 12 groups through today. Very strong interest. The house shows well, even though it needs updating. I think we'll have offers by Monday. Good, I said. I sat on my hotel balcony, watching the sunset over the ocean, and felt strangely calm. Sunday night, Trevor called again. This time, I answered. Mom, he said, and his voice sounded different. Softer. Mom, I'm so sorry. I was wrong. I was stressed about money, and I said terrible things. Please, please come home. We can work this out. What do you want, Trevor? I asked tiredly. I want my mom back, he said, and I heard him crying. I love you. I need you. Please just come home and we'll forget any of this happened. Every instinct I had told me he was lying. I'll think about it, I said, and hung up. Paula called Tuesday morning. Doreen, we have 3 offers. One of them is all cash, $4.1 million, wants to close in 2 weeks. It's a retired couple from California. They're very motivated. I didn't hesitate to accept it. Are you sure? We might be able to negotiate higher if we wait. I'm sure. Accept it today. The closing date was set for exactly 3 weeks from the day I'd walked out. That evening, Trevor called me. He wasn't crying anymore. He was screaming. You can't sell this house. I live here. This is my home. You're not on the deed, Trevor, I said calmly. You never have been. It's my house, not yours. We'll sue you. We'll stop the sale. You can't do this to us. You can try, I said, but you'll lose. He did try. The next day, Bernard Walsh filed a legal claim attempting to block the sale. He argued that Trevor had implied ownership due to his residence in the property and the improvements he'd made. It was nonsense, legally speaking, but it created complications. The court hearing for the guardianship petition arrived on a cold Wednesday morning. I drove back to town with Martin. We met at the courthouse steps. Inside, Trevor and Stephanie sat with Bernard Walsh and Dr. Palmer. Trevor looked terrible. He'd lost weight. His suit was wrinkled. Stephanie wouldn't look at me. The judge, a woman named Elizabeth Morrison, called the case. Both sides presented their arguments. Dr. Palmer took the stand first. He testified that I'd been his patient for 15 years and that he'd noticed significant cognitive decline over the past year. He said I'd become forgetful, confused, unable to manage my own affairs. I watched him lie under oath and felt nothing but contempt. Then Dr. Sharon Wright took the stand. She presented her recent evaluation, her test results, her professional opinion that I was completely mentally competent. She explained in detail the assessments she'd conducted. Judge Morrison listened carefully. Then she asked to speak with me directly. I took the stand. For 30 minutes, she questioned me. She asked about my daily routine, my finances, my medical history. She asked me to explain why I'd listed the house for sale. She asked about Trevor's claims. I answered every question clearly and completely. I showed no confusion, no hesitation. I explained exactly what Trevor and Stephanie had planned, what I'd overheard, why I'd left. When I finished, Judge Morrison looked at Trevor with barely concealed disgust. "Mr. Thompson," she said coldly, "this appears to be a fraudulent attempt to exploit your mother for financial gain. I'm dismissing your petition entirely and referring this matter to the district attorney's office for investigation into possible elder abuse and fraud." Trevor's face turned purple. Bernard Walsh gathered his papers quickly and tried to leave. Judge Morrison stopped him. "Mr. Walsh, you'll be hearing from the state bar about this filing. It borders on frivolous and possibly unethical." Outside the courthouse, Trevor cornered me in the parking lot. Martin tried to step between us, but Trevor pushed past him. "You're destroying our lives," Trevor shouted, his face inches from mine. "Where are we supposed to live? What are we supposed to do?" "You're 38 years old, Trevor," I said. "Figure it out like everyone else does." Stephanie appeared, screaming. "We gave up our apartment to take care of you. We have nothing because of you. You moved in without asking permission, and you've never paid a single bill," I said. "You've lived rent-free for 8 months while plotting to steal my house. You have nothing because you've contributed nothing." Trevor's hands clenched into fists. For a moment, I thought he might actually hit me. "Mom, you really don't want to make an enemy of me." "You made an enemy of yourself," I said, and walked away. The next 2 weeks were a nightmare in a different way. Trevor didn't give up. He just changed tactics. He called everyone in our family. His cousins, my siblings, extended relatives I hadn't spoken to in years. He told them all the same story. That I had dementia, that I was being manipulated by a predatory lawyer who wanted to steal my money, that I was selling the family home out of confusion and spite, that I was abandoning my grandchildren. Most of them believed him. My sister Janet called first. "Doreen, I'm worried about you. Trevor says you're not yourself. He says you're selling Robert's house and you don't even understand what you're doing." I tried to explain the truth. I told her about the plot, the fake documents, the fraudulent medical assessment. But as I talked, I could hear the doubt in her silence. "Honey," Janet finally said, "I love you, but maybe you are confused. Why would Trevor lie about something like this? He's your son. He loves you." "Janet, I'm not confused. I have a doctor's evaluation proving it. Trevor tried to steal my house. That doesn't make sense," she said. "People with dementia often have paranoid delusions. Maybe you should come stay with me for a while. Let me take care of you." I hung up, hurt and frustrated. My brother Arnold called the next day. "Doreen, you're making a huge mistake. That house is Trevor's inheritance. You can't just sell it out from under him." "It's my house, Arnold, not Trevor's. I can do whatever I want with it. He's your son. Your only child. What kind of mother are you? The kind who refuses to be stolen from, I said. He called me selfish and hung up. My nephew called, then 2 cousins. Then Janet called again, this time with several other family members on a conference call. They were planning an intervention. They wanted to come see me, to help me understand what I was doing. I told them all the same thing. You can believe Trevor's lies, or you can believe me, but I'm not changing my mind. Then Trevor made his boldest move yet. He found out who the house buyers were. Their names were on some of the showing paperwork he'd discovered. He called them directly. My mother has Alzheimer's disease, he told them. She's not mentally capable of selling this house. The sale is fraudulent. If you go through with it, you'll lose your money, and you could be charged with elder exploitation. The buyers, a retired couple named George and Linda Patterson, immediately called Paula in a panic. Paula called me, her voice tight with stress. Doreen, the buyers are threatening to back out. They're scared. Your son told them you have dementia and that they'll be in legal trouble if they buy the house. My hands shook with rage. He's lying. I'll prove it. Martin went into action. Within 24 hours, he sent the Pattersons certified letters containing Dr. Wright's full evaluation, the court transcript from Judge Morrison dismissing Trevor's guardianship petition, and a notarized statement from me affirming my mental competency and my intention to sell the house. He also included a letter threatening legal action if they repeated Trevor's defamatory statements. The Pattersons were reassured, but the damage was done. They were nervous now, wary. The sale remained on track, but it felt fragile. I returned to Bayport, exhausted and heartbroken. That night, as I sat in my hotel room, I heard voices outside my door. Then someone started jiggling the doorknob. I called the front desk immediately. The night manager came up with security. Nobody was there, but they found scratches on my lock, like someone had tried to pick it. The next morning, Paula called with worse news. Doreen, Trevor, and Stephanie went to the house yesterday. They let themselves in with their old keys. When I arrived for a showing, they were there. They'd changed all the locks. They told me the house was off the market and I needed to leave. What? They're claiming squatters' rights. They're refusing to leave the property. I drove back immediately, this time with police. I showed them the deed, proving I was the legal owner. I showed them the eviction notice Martin had filed. I explained that Trevor and Stephanie were trespassing. The police entered the house with me. Trevor and Stephanie had moved their belongings back in. They'd made themselves comfortable. "This is my mother's house," Trevor shouted at the officers. "She's being manipulated. She's not mentally competent." The officer, a young man named Rodriguez, looked at me, then at the paperwork, then back at Trevor. "Sir, your mother is the legal owner of this property. She's asking you to leave. You need to go now." "You don't understand. She has dementia. Her lawyer is stealing from her." Officer Rodriguez's partner, an older woman named Chen, stepped forward. "Mr. Thompson, we've reviewed the court documents. Judge Morrison found no evidence of mental incompetence. You need to leave now, or we'll arrest you for trespassing." Trevor and Stephanie had no choice. They packed their things while I watched. Trevor's face was red with humiliation and rage. Stephanie cried angry tears, throwing things into garbage bags. "You'll regret this," Trevor hissed at me as he carried boxes to their car. "We have nowhere to go. Nowhere. And it's all your fault." They left. I had the locks changed again, this time with a locksmith the police recommended. That night, exhausted, I checked back into the Seaside Inn. At 11 o'clock, someone pounded on my door. "Open up! "Mom, open this door. We need to talk." Trevor. He'd been drinking. I could hear it in his voice. I didn't open the door. I called the front desk. They called the police. By the time the officers arrived, Trevor was shouting in the hallway, disturbing other guests. They arrested him for disturbing the peace and public intoxication. The next morning, Martin filed an emergency restraining order. The judge granted it immediately. Trevor had to stay at least 500 feet away from me at all times. He was forbidden from contacting me in any way. This only made him angrier. The 3 weeks between my escape and the closing date crawled by like years. Every day brought some new stress, some new attack. But I held firm. Closing day finally arrived. I sat in the title company's office, signing papers, watching my house officially transfer to the Pattersons. The check cleared. $3.7 million after fees and taxes appeared in my bank account. I felt numb. That evening my phone rang. Trevor's number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. He was screaming so loud, I had to hold the phone away from my ear. "Who are these people? What have you done? There are people here, moving trucks. They say they own the house now. Mom, what have you done?" I closed my eyes. "The new owners are moving in, Trevor. I sold the house. I told you I would. You actually did it." His voice cracked. "You actually sold our house." "My house," I corrected. "It was never yours." Then Trevor's voice changed. The rage disappeared, replaced by something worse. He started crying, real, broken, sobbing. "Mom, please. Please help us." Stephanie left me. She took the kids. I lost my job because I missed so much work dealing with all this court stuff. I have nowhere to go. Nothing. Please, Mom. I'm your son. I'm begging you. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt my resolve waver. Despite everything, he was still my son. I'd held him as a baby. I'd nursed him through fevers. I'd taught him to ride a bike. "Trevor, you did this to yourself," I said, my voice shaking. I know I did. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please, just help me. I'll do anything. I'll go to therapy. I'll make it right. Please don't abandon me." I wanted to believe him. God, how I wanted to. But I'd heard him lie too many times now. "I can't help you, Trevor. Not anymore. Mom, please. Goodbye, Trevor." I hung up. Then I turned off my phone completely and cried into my pillow until I had no tears left. 2 days later, Martin called the hotel's front desk. They put the call through to my room. "Doreen, the district attorney's office has news. They've completed their investigation into the guardianship fraud." I sat up. "And?" "Dr. Palmer has admitted to accepting $3,000 from Trevor to write the fraudulent mental capacity assessment. He's being charged with insurance fraud and medical malpractice. He'll likely lose his license." "And Trevor?" Martin paused. "Trevor is being charged with attempted fraud, conspiracy to commit elder abuse, and financial exploitation. If convicted, he's looking at up to 5 years in prison." The room spun. 5 years? That's the maximum. He'll probably plead down to less, especially if he has a good lawyer. But Doreen, there's more. During the investigation, they discovered something else. "What?" "Trevor has been stealing from you for years. They found canceled checks he forged, totaling $42,000. He had access to your checkbook, and he's been writing checks to himself, signing your name. He used the money to pay gambling debts." "Gambling debts?" Of course. It all made horrible sense now. "They're adding forgery and grand theft to the charges," Martin continued. "He's being arrested today." I couldn't speak. My son was going to prison. "Doreen? Are you there?" "I'm here," I whispered. The next few days blurred together. I stayed in my hotel room barely eating. My sister Janet called, her voice cold. "Doreen, I hope you're happy. Trevor's in jail. His wife left him. His children won't speak to him. You've destroyed his life." "I didn't destroy his life, Janet. He destroyed his own. You could have helped him. You could have been a mother. Instead, you chose money over your son." "I chose survival," I said. "He tried to steal everything from me." "You're heartless," she said, and hung up. My brother Arnold sent a text. "You're dead to this family." I sat in my hotel room and wondered if any of it had been worth it. I had money now, yes. $3.7 million. But I'd lost my son. I'd lost my extended family. I had nothing and no one. I was 65 years old and completely alone. Then my phone rang. A number I didn't recognize. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Mrs. Thompson? This is Stephanie." My whole body tensed. "What do you want?" "I want to tell you the truth." Her voice was bitter, hard. "You want to know what really happened? I'll tell you." "I'm listening." "Trevor planned this for 3 years. 3 years. He has a gambling addiction. Online poker mostly. Sports betting. He lost everything. Our savings, our retirement, everything. We were evicted from our apartment because he gambled away the rent money. That's why we moved in with you." I closed my eyes. "He owes $60,000 to various casinos and loan sharks. Some of them are threatening him. That's why he wanted your house. He was going to sell it, put you in the cheapest nursing home he could find, and use the rest of the money to pay off his debts and start over. And you went along with it. He promised me we'd have a beautiful life. He said once we had the money, he'd stop gambling. He'd get help. We'd buy a new house, start fresh. I believed him." She laughed bitterly. "I was an idiot. Why are you telling me this?" "Because I'm angry. At him, at you, at everyone. I have 2 kids to raise alone now. No home, no savings, nothing. Trevor lied to both of us. And I want you to know that this wasn't just some stupid mistake. He planned every detail. He manipulated everyone. He used me. He used his kids. And he tried to use you." She hung up. I sat in the silence of my hotel room and felt the full weight of the betrayal. My son hadn't just made a desperate mistake. He'd carefully, methodically planned to destroy me for 3 years. While he was hugging me, eating my food, pretending to care, he was plotting how to steal my home and lock me away. That night was the longest of my life. I sat on my balcony watching the ocean, and for the first time, I truly considered whether I'd made the right choice. Trevor was still my son, my only child, the baby I'd rocked to sleep, the boy I'd raised alone, the man I'd loved despite his flaws. And now he was in jail, facing years in prison, his life in ruins. I cried until dawn. I woke up the next morning with a strange sense of clarity. The crying was done. The grief was still there, but underneath it I found something else. Strength. I hadn't destroyed Trevor. He'd destroyed himself. I hadn't chosen money over my son. I'd chosen to protect myself from someone who'd become a threat, someone who'd planned my exploitation for years. The truth was simple and painful. The Trevor I'd raised, the sweet boy I'd loved, was gone. Maybe he'd never really existed, or maybe gambling had transformed him into someone else. Either way, the man who'd tried to steal my house and lock me away wasn't someone I owed anything to anymore. I called Martin, set up a meeting. I want to finalize everything. We met at his office that afternoon. The house sale proceeds were secure in my account, $3.7 million after all the fees and taxes, more money than I'd ever dreamed of having. "What will you do now?" Martin asked. "I'm going to live," I said. "Really live, for the first time in decades." A week later, the district attorney called me. "Mrs. Thompson, we'd like you to testify at Trevor's trial. Your testimony would be crucial." I hesitated. "He's still my son. I understand. But if we can't prove the full extent of his planning, he might get a reduced sentence or even probation. And if he goes free, there's nothing stopping him from doing this to someone else." That decided it. I'll testify. The trial was scheduled for 3 months away. In the meantime, I started building a new life. I left the seaside inn and went house hunting in Bayport. I found a small cottage 3 blocks from the ocean, 2 bedrooms, a sunroom, a garden that needed work. It was perfect. I paid $450,000 in cash, no mortgage, no debt. For the first time since Robert died, I owned a home that was truly just mine. Nobody else's name on the deed. Nobody else's expectations attached to it. I furnished it simply. A comfortable couch, a good mattress, bookshelves, a kitchen table for 2. I bought plants for the sunroom and seeds for the garden. I hung curtains and arranged my photographs on the mantel. I joined a local book club. The women there were my age, mostly widowed or divorced, all living independent lives. They welcomed me without questions. We met every Thursday evening to discuss novels and drink wine. I made friends, real friends who knew nothing about my past, who liked me for who I was now. I started volunteering at the Bayport Animal Shelter 3 mornings a week. The dogs didn't care about my mistakes or my regrets. They just wanted love and attention. One afternoon, a senior beagle mix named Chester caught my eye. He was 12 years old, arthritic, mostly deaf. Nobody wanted to adopt him. He'd been at the shelter for 8 months. I took him home that day. Chester slept on a dog bed beside my bed. He followed me slowly through the house, his tail wagging. He sat beside me on the porch while I drank my morning coffee. He was company without demands, love without conditions. For the first time in months, I felt something like happiness. Then my phone rang with a number I did recognize. Emma, my 14-year-old granddaughter. "Grandma?" Her voice was small and uncertain. My heart clenched. "Emma, sweetheart." "Grandma, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't know what Dad was doing. He told us you were sick and you didn't love us anymore." Tears streamed down my face. "Oh, Emma, I love you so much. I never stopped loving you. Can I see you?" "Mom said I could take the bus if you wanted me to visit." "I'll come get you," I said immediately. 3 hours later, I picked up Emma from Stephanie's mother's house, where she and her brother had been staying. Emma climbed into my car and hugged me so hard I could barely breathe. I brought her to my cottage. She met Chester, explored the garden, stood on the porch looking at the ocean. "Grandma, this place is beautiful," she said. We talked for hours. I told her the truth, all of it. She was old enough to understand. She deserved to know. "I knew something was wrong," Emma said quietly. "Dad was acting weird. He was on his phone all the time, talking about money. He and Mom were fighting constantly. And when we stayed at your house, he wouldn't let us talk to you alone. It's not your fault, sweetheart. I miss you," she whispered. "I miss how things used to be. I miss that too. But we can make new things, better things." Emma stayed the weekend. We walked on the beach. We cooked together. We watched movies. When I drove her home Sunday evening, she hugged me again. "Can I come back next month?" "Anytime you want," I said. "This is your home too." 2 weeks later, my grandson Noah called. He was 11, quieter than his sister, but just as hurt. I picked him up too. Slowly, carefully, I was rebuilding relationships with my grandchildren. Then came the letter that changed everything. It arrived from the county jail, Trevor's handwriting on the envelope. My hands shook as I opened it. The first letter was angry. He blamed me for everything, called me selfish, cruel, vindictive. Said I'd ruined his life and destroyed his family. He said he'd never forgive me. I read it once and threw it away. A week later, another letter came. This one was different. Mom, I've been going to counseling here at the jail. They have a program for inmates with addiction problems. I'm starting to understand what I did. I'm starting to face how sick I've been. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve forgiveness. But I want you to know I'm trying to get help. I'm trying to become someone better. I read that letter 3 times. Then I put it in a drawer and tried not to think about it. The trial date approached. The district attorney prepared me for testimony. They explained what questions they'd ask, what I needed to describe, the plan, the fake documents, the years of theft. "Are you ready for this?" the prosecutor asked. "No," I said honestly, "but I'll do it anyway." The night before the trial, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Trevor as a little boy, how he'd run to me when he skinned his knee, how he'd made me breakfast in bed on Mother's Day with burnt toast and cold eggs, how he'd cried at his father's funeral and held my hand during the service. Where had that boy gone? When had he become someone I didn't recognize? The next morning, I drove to the courthouse. The trial would take 3 days. I was scheduled to testify on day 2. I sat in the courtroom and watched Trevor enter in handcuffs. He'd lost more weight. His hair was shorter. He looked older, tired, broken. He saw me, and our eyes met. For just a second, I saw something in his face. Not anger, not defiance, just sadness. The prosecution called witnesses first. Martin testified about the fraudulent documents. Dr. Wright explained her evaluation. Paula described Trevor's attempts to sabotage the house sale. The police officers who'd arrested Trevor talked about his behavior. Then it was my turn. I walked to the witness stand and swore to tell the truth. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Alexandra Reeves, asked me to describe what happened. I told the story from beginning to beginning: the Sunday dinner, the humiliation, the overheard conversation, the discovery of Trevor's years-long plan. I explained how I'd felt when I learned my own son was planning to institutionalize me and steal my house. How betrayed, how frightened, how heartbroken. Trevor's lawyer tried to make me look vengeful, vindictive. He asked why I'd listed the house so quickly, why I hadn't tried to work things out with my son, why I'd testified against him instead of helping him. Because he didn't want help, I said. He wanted my house, and he was willing to destroy me to get it. The jury listened with horror on their faces. Several women were crying. On day 3, the jury deliberated for 4 hours. They came back with their verdict: guilty on all counts: attempted fraud, conspiracy to commit elder abuse, financial exploitation, forgery, grand theft. Trevor's face crumpled. His lawyer put a hand on his shoulder. The judge scheduled sentencing for 2 weeks later. I went home to my cottage and tried to feel something. Relief, maybe. Satisfaction. But all I felt was tired. Sentencing day arrived. The courtroom was packed. The district attorney recommended 4 years in prison. Trevor's lawyer argued for probation and treatment instead. Then Judge Morrison asked if anyone wanted to make a statement before she passed sentence. I stood up. Everyone looked surprised. The prosecutor hadn't known I planned to speak. I walked to the front of the courtroom and faced the judge. "Your Honor, my son tried to steal everything from me. He lied to me, manipulated me, planned to have me locked away in a facility so he could take my home. He forged checks and stole over $40,000 from me. He deserves to be punished for what he did." I paused and took a deep breath. "But he's also sick. He has a gambling addiction that destroyed his judgment and turned him into someone I don't recognize. He needs treatment more than he needs prison." I turned and looked at Trevor directly for the first time since the trial began. "Trevor, what you did was unforgivable. You betrayed me in the worst way possible. You tried to steal my home, my dignity, my autonomy. You planned to lock me away like I was garbage to be disposed of." Trevor was crying silently, tears streaming down his face. "But I'm your mother, and I remember who you were before gambling consumed you. I remember the little boy who used to bring me dandelions from the yard, the teenager who mowed the lawn without being asked, the young man who cried at his father's funeral." My voice shook, but I continued. "I'm asking the court to consider a sentence that includes mandatory addiction treatment and full restitution. Let him get help. Let him become the man he should have been. Because despite everything, I can't give up hope that somewhere inside him that person still exists." The courtroom was silent. Even the judge looked moved. Judge Morrison took a long moment before speaking. "Mr. Thompson, your mother has shown you more grace than you deserve. Most people in her position would want to see you locked away for as long as possible, but she's asking for mercy." She looked at the sentencing guidelines and then back at Trevor. "I'm sentencing you to 2 years in state prison, followed by 3 years of supervised probation. You will complete a residential gambling addiction treatment program while incarcerated. You will pay full restitution to your mother for the $42,000 you stole, plus interest. You will have no contact with your mother unless she specifically requests it. Do you understand?" Trevor nodded, unable to speak. "Dr. Palmer," the judge continued, addressing the doctor who sat in the back of the courtroom, "you will lose your medical license. Mr. Pemberton, you will be disbarred. This court will not tolerate the exploitation of vulnerable adults." It was over. 6 months passed like a dream. I settled into my new life in Bayport. My cottage became a real home. The garden bloomed under my care. Chester grew stronger with good food and daily walks. Emma visited once a month. We'd spend weekends together, talking and laughing. She told me about school, about her friends, about her hopes for the future. Noah called every Sunday evening. Our conversations were shorter, more awkward, but we were rebuilding trust slowly. I took art classes at the community center, something I'd always wanted to do but never had time for. I painted badly at first, but I got better. I loved it. I made real friends in Bayport, women who invited me to lunch, who called to check on me, who celebrated my birthday with a surprise party. I hadn't realized how lonely I'd been for so long. My sister Janet called eventually. "Doreen, I was wrong. Arnold told me everything. We should have believed you." "Yes, you should have," I said. But I accepted her apology. Life was too short for permanent grudges. My investments were smart and conservative. I worked with a financial advisor to make sure the money would last the rest of my life and still leave something for Emma and Noah. Then came the day Trevor was released. He'd served 18 months of his 2-year sentence and earned early release for good behavior. His probation officer called me. "Mrs. Thompson, Trevor has asked permission to contact you. You have every right to say no." I thought about it for 3 days. Finally, I said yes. We met in a public park, neutral territory. Trevor arrived with his probation officer. He looked different, healthier. His eyes were clearer. We sat on a bench with 3 feet of space between us. "Mom," he started, then stopped. His hands were shaking. "Mom, I can't undo what I did. I can only tell you I'm sorry and that I'm changing. I've been sober from gambling for 20 months. I go to meetings every day. I'm working 2 jobs to pay you back." "I know," I said. Martin had been receiving monthly restitution payments. "I'm not asking you to trust me," Trevor continued. "I know trust takes years to rebuild. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know that I'm trying to be a better man." I looked at my son. He was 40 years old now. He'd lost years of his life, his marriage, his home. But maybe, just maybe, he'd found something too. Clarity, humility, self-awareness. "You can call me once a month," I said. "That's all I can offer right now." "That's more than I deserve," he said. "Thank you." We talked for 30 minutes. It wasn't easy. There were long silences and uncomfortable moments, but it was a start. When I drove home that evening, Chester greeted me at the door with his tail wagging. I made dinner and ate on my porch, watching the sunset paint the sky orange and pink. And I thought about everything. People ask me if I regret how things turned out. They think I should feel guilty for sending my son to prison, for selling the house, for walking away from my family. They think I should have tried harder to help Trevor, to fix him, to sacrifice myself for his sake. But I learned something important through all of this. Protecting yourself isn't selfish. Setting boundaries isn't cruel. And sometimes, the people who should love you most are the ones who hurt you deepest. I spent 37 years in that house. I raised my son there after my husband died. I worked myself nearly to death to keep it, sacrificing my own dreams and needs and wants to provide for Trevor. And my son looked at it and saw nothing but a $sign. He looked at me and saw nothing but an obstacle to remove. The real betrayal wasn't that he wanted the house. It was that he saw me as something less than human, less than a person with my own rights and dignity. I was just a problem to solve, preferably in the cheapest and most convenient way possible. When I walked out that door with my suitcase, I wasn't running away. I was running toward myself, toward the life I deserved, toward peace and autonomy and the right to make my own choices. Yes, I'm 65 years old. Some people think that's too old to start over. They think I should have just accepted my lot, signed the papers, let Trevor do what he wanted. After all, where was I going to go? What was I going to do? But I wake up every morning in my cottage by the ocean, and I smile. I have friends who value me for who I am. I have grandchildren who respect me and want to spend time with me. I have Chester, who loves me unconditionally. I have art classes and book clubs and volunteer work that gives my life meaning. And I have myself back, my dignity, my autonomy, my right to live my own life on my own terms. The house sold for $4.1 million. After taxes and fees, I received $3.7 million. But the real treasure wasn't the money. It was reclaiming my power, my voice, my right to say no to people who wanted to use me. As for Trevor, I hope he continues on his path. I hope the treatment works and he becomes the man he could have been. I hope he finds peace and purpose. But his journey is his own now. I can't save him. I could only save myself. And that's not selfish. That's survival. If you're listening to this and someone in your life is using you, manipulating you, or making you feel like a burden, please hear me. You are not obligated to set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. Even if that someone is your own child, even if your family says you're wrong, even if everyone around you thinks you should just give in. You have the right to protect yourself. You have the right to set boundaries. You have the right to walk away from people who don't value you. It's never too late to start over. It's never too late to choose yourself. I'm Doreen. I'm 65 years old. I sold the house they thought was theirs for $4.1 million, and I've never been happier. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to make a hard choice between protecting yourself and keeping the peace with family? How did you find the courage to set boundaries with people you love? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might help someone else who's struggling with a similar situation right now. If this story touched your heart or made you think differently about family loyalty and self-protection, please hit that like button. Subscribe to hear more stories about real people facing real challenges and finding the strength to overcome them. And share this with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to put themselves first sometimes. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it reminds you that you're stronger than you think, that you deserve to be treated with respect and dignity, and that it's never too late to reclaim your life. Take care of yourselves out there. You matter.